Good job.
Okay, admit all. I'm doing it. Oh no, disable. I hope everybody's well, and good to see you. That's the best part. Take the time to say hi to everybody in the other pages with your eyes. We can say a lot of things with our eyes. Hello. So I hope everybody that you're doing well enough or well. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
We hope you're warm and dry. Well fed, well rested. All important qualities to be in the present moment, moment to moment.
I think, Steve, it's all ready. Everything looks good.
All right.
Everybody looks good. Yeah.
Speaking of seeing, if your eyes still open, are your eyes softly closed? Bringing mindful awareness to the eye door. And just notice if the experience of awareness at the eye door is on the colors, forms, that is the visual palette, or of the eye sensitivity that's receiving light into the body. Light waves, light particles, or thirdly, of seeing consciousness, that is knowing seeing is happening. In this way, we're not identified or attached, judgmental of what is seen, the object seen, or of the I as mine, me, or identified with seeing. I am seen, as opposed to seeing is happening. It's just seeing. Seeing as shapes and forms, variation of color, or seeing as eye sensitivity receiving light into the body, or abiding in awareness of the knowing of seeing, seeing consciousness. In all of those three cases, there does not need to be an identification or any narrative about the eye, the object seen, or the process of seeing that happens moment to moment. Moment to moment, light enters the body, moment to moment, eye sensitivity receives light, and consciousness of seeing is moment to moment. So it gets very interesting and a powerful way to disidentify. Many of us are visual thinkers, so it's hard, challenging to be completely mindful of seeing as a moment-to-moment experience, as it can be with the thinking mind. More difficult than with sounds. Often we quickly find a certain skill in being able to receive sound vibrations without identifying or thinking about the sound, where it's coming from, what it is. Easier to receive sound vibration into the body and just be aware of those sound moments. And the receiving of the sound, the sensitivity of the ear door, or hearing consciousness. And if that is easier for some of us, then to go to a more challenging sense door from there, from hearing, for example, to seeing becomes easier, or to the heart mind door, where we find the birth of thought formations. Being very present, the birth of thought formations before they form into a story, narrative, the conceptual process. We catch it at the sort of pre-conceptual, as if awareness is abiding in a precognitive moment, so that we become more and more adept at just knowing thinking is happening rather than thinking about thinking, which is then generating a story about experience, not the direct experience of thought moments, of the thought base in the solar plexus, or awareness of thinking. In that way, we can visit whatever of the sense doors you would like to, if there are fragrances or tastes, and of course, the body, within which we can experience all things. The senses are also the body. They're just a window of the body, to sight, to sound, to all the senses. So to learn to abide within the body as just the body, being experienced elementally, vibrations and pressures, textures of hard, soft, smooth, grainy. The body tells us everything we need to know. It's only happening in the present moment. So it's already here, inviting of mindful awareness to also simply relax and abide in this very moment. So either the body or the breath aspect of the body, knowing them as our home anchor, variation, the whole body, certain areas of the body like the hands or feet, which can be touchstones, an immediate grounding when the mind is wandering. Or the breathing process where we just come to rest within the rise and fall of the abdomen, for example, and notice that within just a few breaths, 3, 4, 10, 11, we can look into the heart and already notice the calming of mental formations. The scattered mind is just gradually coalescing into stillness. And likewise, the body itself feels connected, grounded. The formations coming into a bodily calm and tranquility. And then as an early understanding of cause and effect, or karma, we see how bodily calm affects mental calm, and mental calm in return affects bodily calm. And our whole system begins to feel collected, unified. Body, mind, unification. All the mental, physical, emotional streams merging into a still pond of reflection, clarity, tranquility. See if you can reflect in this sitting. What does it take to call up and sustain rest, relaxation, so that our gentle, observing awareness, often accompanied by the goodwill of loving kindness or the care of compassion, what does it take that there's a surround of relaxation? The awareness, the kindness come out of that deep Dhamma, ease, relaxation, rest, that our entire practice is noticed from this basis of deep rest. To see for yourself how it's happening.
Thank you. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Hear you?
Okay. 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 Thank you, Stephen, for the instructions. And I think that that sense of encouraging that deeper rest and calm as a source of any way that we can explore our moment-to-moment experience without without the lens of desire and fear, aversion. That's the that can be such a powerful anchor for all of us. And I wanted to begin by talking about November. The new moon time of the year, any time is a darker time, of course, but in November, a little while ago, I think I started noticing the color of the sky at night was so different. It was so much darker. And I know one of the reasons that when I first came over to this part of the Big Island, I noticed the sky. There was a particular kind of darkness that happens this time of year that I was so moved by. And as the moon has been getting larger, and I've been noticing also how it seems like the moon is brighter than ever in contrast with this darkness. And it's almost like that darkness needs that light, that needs the moonlight. And I know in the north, in November, so much of the forest opens up. There's so much so many leaves have died. And in some ways you can feel the autumn, the dying in it, but also there's such an opening of light and being able to move through areas you couldn't before. And in a way, where I live in the desert, the drought, it's not winter like in the north, but the drought it becomes more and more devastating, and the foliage comes off because it's so dry. So the result is the same in that I feel like I can see through areas that I don't normally. And sometimes I think November, the subtleties of the changes can be very easy to miss. You know, it's not maybe like there's a lot of snow on the ground. Certainly, it hasn't rained here. And I think in whatever way we're connected to the seasons, I think November can tend to be a challenging time to really pay closer attention. If you notice the stars, Scorpio has now drifted into the under the horizon, and just Sagittarius and Venus are there, you know, and it's so easy to miss these things. I know, oh, I'm not going to see Scorpio for so long. And I think it's, again, just as Steve created that refuge inwardly. I think that if I don't have some connection to that, I don't feel connected and I don't explore. I don't wonder. I know a yogi from the last retreat we just taught up in person up in British Columbia sent me a poem by Naima Penniman, and she's a contemporary of all of us, which is very important. Where did I put? She's known as a multi-dimensional artist and activist, healer, grower, and educator. So I'd like to share this as a way to begin that sense of moving from that quiet, connected refuge into a kind of wonder. I wonder if the sun debates some mornings not wanting to get out of bed, if the sky grows tired of being everywhere at once, if the clouds desperately try to hold themselves together, if rain is scared of falling and has trouble letting go, if snowflakes get tired of being perfect and one of a kind, if stars wish upon themselves before they die, if they need to teach their young how to shine. I wonder if shadows long to just for once feel the sun. I wonder if sunrise and sunset respect each other even though they've never met. I wonder if breath ever thinks of taking a break, if the wind just wants to sit still sometimes. I wonder if streams meet the wrong sea and their whole lives run off track. I wonder if the snow wants to be black, if the soil thinks she's too dark, if rocks are self-conscious of their weight, if sand feels insignificant, if mountains are insecure in their strength. I wonder if waves get discouraged, crawling up the sand, only to be pulled back again to where they began. If the leaves understand they're replaceable and still dance when the wind blows. I wonder where the moon goes when she is hiding. I want to find her there and watch the ocean spin from a distance. Listen to her stir in her sleep. Effort give way to existence. Naima Penniman. It's often, I think, always important to remember one aspect of mindfulness that we sometimes forget, which is that it's awareness, but it's awareness infused with wisdom. It's awareness infused with wisdom. So what does it take, for that to happen? And so much of, for example, how Steve guided us into that deeper sense of awareness in the rest, it's like, well, the attention, is it receptive, right? Can we wonder that? Is the attention receptive? And is the attention connected to what's happening just as it's happening? Like, is the attention connected with the sound just as not only when it begins, but as it's changing and ends? Like, is the attention connected with the breath just as it's moving, and just not the word breath, right? Not my breath, but just this wonder, just what is this movement? So that there's these aspects of attention that we wouldn't call even mindfulness yet, right? There's the ability to connect the attention, to receive what's happening non-conceptually, and to sustain the attention with that movement. And that takes such quiet and rest, that what's appearing is so tender because it's alive. Yeah, we keep forgetting, the words are not alive in the same way that the direct experience without the words are alive. The words aren't a problem, of course, they're just thoughts, they're memories, the memory of the word breath. It can help us connect the attention with the direct experience. It's not a problem. So here, when we abide in this quiet rest, it's like what's appearing, there's a chance to be interested in it. And not from memory, but through just the direct experience. And so this is where the understanding or wisdom comes in. It's like there has to be some interest in the nature of how things are. So mindfulness is being with the nature of how things are. And the nature of how things are is that they're moving. They're alive, anicca, impermanence. And so just to be able to be, we might expect so much of ourselves, what is mindfulness, but actually to just be with the breath appearing and be with it appearing, growing and disappearing, and to understand the nature of that is massive. It's huge. That's being interested in that. And it doesn't have to be the breath. It's anything that appears in our experience. Sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, emotions, thoughts. There's doesn't have to be, we don't have to be interested in all of that. It can be one thing, one step, one sip of water. So we attempt to cultivate these qualities of kindness, of tenderness, of rest, of and then that out of that, hopefully some energy grows. So the energy to move from kind of maybe a complacent or tired or bored place to a more alive awareness that's interested in life just as it is. A kitty on the lap of a yogi. So it's so important, the translation, it's nature, where the nature of how things are. There's a great chant that means all conditioned things are arising and passing away. Understanding this brings the greatest kind of happiness, which is peace. This is extraordinary, the greatest kind of happiness. This isn't saying there aren't many, many other kinds of happiness, but the happiness of peace includes this wisdom of understanding that whatever appears, whether it's a moment, right, one moment of seeing, or our planet, right, it's like it can be micro or just so huge, geological time, the birth, life, and death of a star. There's this chant, I remember when I first heard it, was so captivating for me. Anicca vata sankara upatawa yadamino upakituwa niruchanti desam upasumo sukho. Anicca vata sankara upatawa yadamino upakituwa niruchanti desam upasumo sukho. Sukho is happiness. Anicca vata sankara upatawa yadamino upakituwa niruchanti desam upasumo sukho. So I think that it's when we have the sense of the accomplishment of accepting that just the freedom of that, the accomplishment of it, that we can sometimes get, that being connected with anicca, being connected is being protected, is being safe. We're not surprised at the birth, life, and death of a moment, or all the other ways that birth, life, and death happen. So there's a way in which I think we can forget the strength of that, the strength of it, the power of it, that we need the kindness, we need the tenderness, we need the compassion. It's not that we accept that as a deep truth and that we need that, but that we also need the strength of understanding the nature of how things are. We need the wisdom as well. So that being connected to impermanence, it's not being overly negative, and it's not being overly positive. It's not getting crushed by negativity, and it's not getting crushed by positivity. It's being at home. It's being at home connected with the truth, and at home in each moment, that it's that unpredictable, it's that uncertain. So it moves from we go from a kind of self-centered fight or flight mode of being to being at home everywhere and every moment. So this is the price of aliveness itself, of life itself. There's a man that works next door to me that became a little unhappy with the situation, and he's been doing a little bit of work for me. And the other day we were talking, and he said, when you're dead, there's no issues. There's no more issues. I love that. He said, when you're alive, there's always issues, but when you're dead, there's no issues. And I was like, oh boy, I hope he comes back to my house. What a blessing. Connected with the truth. Things are as they are. There's a Pali word, Loka Dhamma, way of the world. Loka is world. Dhamma, the way of the world, the gain, loss, pleasure, pain, praise, blame, fame, disrepute. That this is the way for all of us, that these are the nature of aliveness, of being here. Where I live, you can hear chickens. You can hear them all night. If anybody visits, they're appalled, but I actually don't really hear them anymore much. You just kind of like a car, you just get used to that sound. And but I've never had a wild chicken in my yard until very recently. I don't know their behavior very well. But she's actually already had 2 sets of babies, and they've all been killed. They've all died. And it's been very intense to be part of that with her, and not really ask for that to happen in my yard, but here she is, and she's here again. And I'm starting to notice the pattern. She comes around, she disappears for a while, she's come back, and I notice her being around. And this time she put the nest really close to my house, but I didn't know. But I'm starting to get the pattern a little bit more. And then I think it was 2 days ago, before I saw a nest, there's 6 little baby chicks. And that day I found the nest right near my house, and there's a few unhatched eggs. And it's almost like she becomes like a crazy rototiller. Like she just has these 6 chicks, and she's digging holes, and I trip over them, and the dirt's all over the place, and I trip on some more, and she squawks a lot. And I tell myself, do not get close to these baby chicks. Like, I'll just give myself a lecture. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put myself through this. And yet I find myself most of the day looking out the windows and like counting them. And I know I have names for them. I mean, it's like so funny. Like, I tell myself not to do it. I have all their colors. I see which ones are big, which ones are little, which ones are not like the favorite, which, oh, and I'm in the meantime, I'm telling myself, don't do this to yourself. Just don't. I mean, 2 times already. What are you thinking? And yet, I connect. Right. And it's like very important for us to see, of course I have hope that these beings are going to make it. Of course I do, and then I don't know what's happening, but I'm noticing I have these 3 feral cats, and they're acting really scared. And so I'm wondering, well, they can't be scared of these baby chicks. They've adapted to the mother hen around. And now I realize every time they must attract these kind of rogue, there's these rogue feral cats. And the last time, we trapped the cat, but, I don't even know if it's that cat, right? It could be a rat, it could be a mongoose, but at any rate, the feral cats are kind of in hiding, scared. So then this morning, the mother hen and the baby chicks were up on the little, just the little place that I walk out on the steps, and she's squawking, and I'm like, what does she want now? And then I saw her drinking the cat's water. Oh, okay. So here we go. She's getting closer, and it's very interesting. And I think what I see is that I'm so grateful she comes. And I'm so grateful that I can be with it. Like, if it's a rat, of course I know this rat will have babies, right? And if I know it's a mongoose, I know this mongoose will have babies. And whatever being is eating the chicks, it's like, who do you pick? Whose chicks do you pick, right? And so it's just that sense of like the way of the world, predator prey, like, oh, do we have a heart for it? Like, do we have a heart for connecting? And at some point there's heartbreak, right? You can't avoid it. It might not be in your yard, but in my yard, just the amount of baby geckos that I saw be born in the pandemic. I never even noticed the baby geckos. Like, there's so many of them, and now I just see, oh my, how many of them are gonna make it? I don't know. But it's just amazing to just in one little, I can take 1/4 of like my bedroom. Like, there's been so many geckos born, right? it just, we can try, but we can't avoid anicca, vata, sankhara, patavaya, dhamino. It could be the skin on your arms, right? It's the cells are, why do you wash yourself? Well, because new cells, new skin cells are being born and the old ones are dying. It's internal, it's external. And I think so much of the practice is learning how to be with that, like to be okay with the hope and the heartbreak of it all, right? Being with the nature of how things are, the nature of Vipassana, the nature of how things are. There's a lot of predator prey going on in our bodies. That's what I meant. So it takes so much courage, and that, like, again, that Steve's instructions, that like that ability to get quiet and to connect with our sense doors and to rest, and then what we have the courage to see what happens next, to see what happens next, to see what happens next. Out of such, we can care about the way of the world so much, but most of it we can't control. So that's the anicca, dukkha, anatta. The dukkha is because of impermanence, there's the unreliability of experience. And anatta is translated, atta is self, no self, but it means that nothing exists by itself. But it also means uncontrollability. There's so much in these characteristics of existence. So what if we're able to be mindful even a few seconds, if we're able to have this investigation, interest, and connecting with how things are just as they are, then these characteristics of existence become illuminated. We realize something, the insight about how things are, and that makes us stronger and more protected. I think there's one just very simple practice that if you want to try this next week, but I think that just kind of things can be distilled down to when we see what happens moment by moment in our life, acceptance and resistance. And that if we relate to them equally, that it's okay to resist how things are. It's okay. And then that we see that we can accept how things are, that the resistance is the suffering. But it's not like you try to get rid of that. It's more like you accept the resistance. So if I I know right after we end, I'm going to go down and count the chicks. This is just what's going to happen. I can't not do that, right? But it's like accepting how it's going to happen, right? Of course, I'm going to have some resistance if there's a chick gone. And I'm going to become Sherlock Holmes and I'm going to try to figure out who it is, right? It's this is part of gain, loss, pleasure, pain, joy, sorrow, these. And then we can do praise, blame with all the beings. Can we do praise, blame with a mongoose? Right? It's like, yeah, but can we control it? No. So it's like, this is exploring, maybe something is in your refrigerator and it's gone bad before, it's gone rotten before you realize it. I mean everything. Paying attention to everything. Maybe you don't like how your hair looks, I don't know, or the no hair looks. Whatever it is, it's like to just see without judgment, without feeling like it shouldn't be there. Just see where there's acceptance, see where there's resistance. And the third option is, of course, See if there's acceptance of the resistance. And check it out. Check how, as an exploration, rather than it's supposed to land somewhere better than it is now. Peace. Peace includes those three options. Accepting resistance is peace. Acceptance. It seems like since I returned from Canada, I've bumped into a few people I don't normally bump into, and I think it's been almost 2 years since the pandemic started, and I'll remember. Oh, we used to do a Sunday sitting, and we haven't done it all this time. We've been doing this and shifted to this wholeheartedly. We'll stick with this, and after even the pandemic. And this woman I haven't seen because she just comes to the Sunday sittings out there, and we stopped. And it was so good to see her. And it was so good to see someone I haven't seen that long, and to just see myself where I am reflected in her, and her seeing herself reflected with me. And I think what I was so touched by is that she said she feels so disoriented by so much global suffering. And I felt there was something so important in that for all of us, that like I think that we hear so much, we see so much. Hopefully we're involved in some of it, in terms of bringing some energy to help. And I could see that we, as I often do, but even more so than ever, it's like in some ways time has stopped, or almost stopped. Like, is it any different than 2 years ago? Well, yeah, it is, right? But there is a level where, I know for myself, my sense of time has become very distorted. And to see that, oh, we actually need to have compassion, so much compassion for all of us on the planet, not just our little world, but just that great, great picture of it all. To live through a pandemic is amazing. And it can be so easy to get caught in a lot of, I think, aversion or fear around aspects of how people even react to it. And I came up with a new part of the metta chant that, for those of you who know the metta chant that we offer, the loving kindness chant, there's like sabe, sabe this, sabe that, which is like wishing well this, wishing well that. And so wishing well females, wishing well males, wishing well, all, we added in all the different ways to perceive gender and class, and just we've been shifting things a little bit with it, but all humans, all devas or angels, all animals, just it's like the Buddha left no one out, no being out with the metta. And because things got so intense sometimes with the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, I added in sabe vaccinated, sabe unvaccinated. So I hope if you lose your sense of humor, or if whatever place you're standing with it, try adding in sabe vaccinated, sabe unvaccinated, because actually that's really important, and it's really important to have some sense of finding a way where we aren't separating to the point of no return with this one. Doesn't help to lose the loving kindness for all beings. It's the unconditional kindness without conditions. Sometimes I just say, without conditions, without conditions, without conditions. And we have to remember that this all takes a certain kind of courage. And so that I'm going to bring this back to the C's instructions, because if we're not taking the time to, it's not sleep, it's resting the attention and learning how to be here non-conceptually as a way of rest, of abiding, a quiet abiding with our moment to moment sixth sense door, that flow of change, and finding refuge in that home, that spiritual home that doesn't require a certain experience to be happening or a certain place to be happening. And that, so it's like often we have to look at our lives and see, are we making enough time for courage, courageous energy? There's one of the 3 feral cats is a daughter. So there was a mother feral cat, and then there's 2 daughters. And one of them is probably the shyest of the lot. So I think I've known these beings for, now it's been 10 and a half years. I can't believe it. And feral beings, they don't change on the same time scale that we want them to or expect them to if they're truly feral. And this particular cat, for the last few years, there's she puts certain conditions on the intimacy and the connection. So if I stand outside at night in a certain spot, it's around 10 o'clock at night. If I stand there in the dark, she'll come over. This has been like the pandemic intimacy experiment, and I just stand there. And recently, she not only, circles, and I wear shorts. I even, like, if I have sweatpants on, I change them. I put my shorts on, and because she likes that better, and she'll circle my legs. And now she's letting me sometimes lean over and pet her a little bit. It's huge. It's so huge. And just recently, this is so cute, she wraps her tail around my legs. And I realize that she's talking to me. She's talking to me with her tail. That's her way of communicating. This is her, like, she's probably, like, it's taken her so much courage. She's so afraid. I can't even tell you how afraid she is. And yet she's doing that. She curls her tail around me, and for like not that long, but I've realized, it took me a long time to realize, oh, she's communicating with me with her tail and talking with me. And it's such a privilege to have waited this long. And I don't expect it to change from here. It may a little bit. And the reason I like to share about someone like her is we're not that far from her. We think we are. But in terms of having the courage to be with moment to moment change, if you look at the course of a day, we run out of courage a lot. And it's easy to judge the beings who maybe are more afraid. But ultimately, maybe next lifetime, she'll be ahead. Who knows? Maybe all the patience that she's had to put into daring to put her tail around my legs, so that maybe I'll listen to her, right? Maybe I'll actually be able to communicate with her. Maybe she's been waiting all this time. Who knows? But I think it's very important to value courage, and not the kind of macho courage, but it's a courage that takes such delicacy of kindness and tenderness and patience to really be able to be with things as they are, because they're alive, right? It's alive. And there's so many issues, right? There's so many issues that we forget that we can just not be caught in the content of all the issues, but to actually be here. That's it. Valuing the wisdom that comes from the courage, valuing the unconditional loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity that comes from the wisdom. Okay. So there's time for questions about Steve's instructions or the talk. I am supposed to do something as the host. Nope. Oh, well, oh, there. Oops. I don't. I think I'm supposed to. Oh, we'll see. I'm hoping you all know how to ask a question, because that's kind of way beyond me. But Trey, maybe Trey, can you explain how to ask a question? Oh, I have to unmute you, right? Oh dear. I'm trying to get everybody to be unmuted, but maybe I can mute all, cancel. How's that? Oh, I didn't see you, Jake. Okay. I think I managed to unmute everybody, but that still doesn't explain how to do the question, does it? Well, I know you can go to reactions down at the bottom of your screen. And if you press reactions, you can see that you can raise your hand. Yes, okay, we got it. Okay. Pretty soon you won't even notice that I'm hosting.
I don't think you unmuted everybody, Michele.
I did. Is that all right? Or should I? Maybe Jake. Hey, Jake. What do I do? Is everything all right the way it is? Or do I need to press them? You will need to unmute me. Oh, I've been trying. Okay. Okay. I'll go up to Jay. Where's, there you go. Okay. All right. There we go.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Now I need to get my video on the more presentable one.
Thanks. Oh, sorry, Trey. I couldn't even. T was way down below J.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of red. Okay, so I think the easiest thing is if you can make me a co-host, Michele, and then I can just run it. But
yeah, well, that sounds wonderful. How do I do that?
okay, so on my name on participants, you
Ah,
should be able to do like a more and then make me a co-host.
okay. You seem to have disappeared. Oh, maybe you're up above now. No? Yeah, you're up above, so. Huh. Make co-host. Okay, brilliant.
Brilliant.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Now I have. Okay, so allow participants to unmute themselves. You should now be able to unmute yourself. That's great. We don't actually want to unmute everybody at once, because what will happen is a cacophony.
Okay.
It will sound like the chickens.
I'm gonna sit back and enjoy the show. Okay.
Perfect.
Yay.
Doing nothing with full
I did
commitment.
try to do it, but it didn't work. I need a little extra tutorial.
Okay, so I will just also sit back and enjoy the show, but I'll help you unmute yourselves. And anybody who wants to raise a hand, the easiest way is under reactions, raise hand, but I'll keep an eye out on video if people are jumping up and down. I'll try and catch that too.
Thank you. I hope somebody has a question so that it makes it
After all
all.
that, make it
after
worth
all
it.
that- if you don't, it's okay. We'll survive.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Catherine.
Okay, I'll take the pressure off.
All right. Thanks,
Perfect.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
All right, just to take the pressure off, I'll just say it's great to be back. The reason I'm on is that because the storm is supposed to be coming to Honolulu, I am not in Hula. And that
Ah,
you're wondering why I'm here, aren't you?
lucky. Yes. No, I was wondering. I didn't even know, I knew you went away, you and Harry, so I didn't know.
In Kansas City, and then
Uh-huh.
I don't get to come to the sitting because it
Right,
conflicts with Hula is
Hula.
fun, as you all know, right?
right.
Anyway, we were in Kansas City and we saw the Auschwitz exhibit, which starts in Kansas City, and it's got all these mementos, and it's this incredible exhibit. But anyway, I won't go into how incredible it is. It took us 3 hours to get through the exhibit, and by then we were incredibly exhausted and thoughtful. But the one thing that came out was, they had some survivors at the very end, and they're supposed to be uplifting, but, after 2 hours and 50 minutes of, really depressing information, 10 minutes isn't going to do it. But one of the survivors said at the end, and I just remember this, he just said, never mind, just don't dislike anyone. I thought, okay, that's a really good, thing to live by. And so I walk out, okay, and I think this is really good. I'll tell you, 15 minutes later, a mere 15 minutes later, I found myself disliking someone. And I thought, I'm never going to make it in this lifetime, Michele. Talk about human, propensities, and I thought, oh God, great words, but, just don't dislike anyone. I thought, okay, that's simple enough. And, when you talk about life and noticing, and I thought, oh God, just don't dislike anyone. 15 minutes later, and what? I failed already, and I'm not even in the middle of a Holocaust. Anyway, that's my story. And, you all are so inspiring, with your compassion and, willingness to be human. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, maybe I'll start then, Steve. Do you want to do it that way, or do you want to, Steve?
Go
Is that
ahead.
all right? Yeah. Well, I think it's like, if you practice being with what appears and are careful of expectation of or agenda of how you should be, then if dislike appears, then that's what's predominant. And it's just as important as like. And this is what's so hard to get us through our head. It's like, you can't control that the dislike appeared. It probably happened in 1 second of looking at somebody, or, it's like it's conditioned. That's all conditioned things. Loving kindness is unconditioned. It's unconditioned. And when the conditioned appears, you don't go like that, like I failed. That's so painful. That's adding more aversion and dislike. That's like the chain of anger and dislike and fear. It's like it's because disliking is unpleasant. And usually we dislike because something's unpleasant. And it's like that chain again to pain, that your practice would be to value disliking as an object of your attention, just like you would if you and I think the way into that is the metta practice, which is you if it's too hard, you shift to someone easy, right? The way this is taught is to go to what's easy. So you'd shift to something easy, which you know, and you've cultivated. You shift to something easy, and then you see if you can be with the dislike, and you shift to something easy. And if you can't, no problem.
Well, you really helped, from the very beginning. I remember us walking in Palolo, at the Zen would say, may I be happy just the way I am. May I be happy while I'm grumpy.
Right.
And I remember thinking, while I am, whichever state it was, and it didn't make sense at the time, but I do really understand that now.
You do. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It's like, okay, may I be peaceful while I'm disliking,
Right.
this is the way it is. And it really makes a big difference. It does. So I'm stomping away going, and I'm okay. But that's the practice, understanding where I am. I don't know where everybody else is, but and it does.
I doubt there's anybody who's going to raise their hand and say they don't dislike anybody or anything. It's like, it's a projection. Remember, it's a projection. The unpleasant happens here, right? But we see it. It might have been something you heard or you saw. Was it sight or hearing?
It was a sight.
Yeah, so it's a sight, and that
it was like boom, and I thought, oh
yeah.
wow, 15 minutes, and then I just started laughing because it was, so ridiculous. Because I mean, it wasn't even a big thing. It's that very tiny little thing, and then you just go, oh, dislike. I mean, it wasn't hatred or it was just that being dislike, and I thought, God, I can't even not dislike.
Right, and that's the place that you got caught.
Right. And then I just started laughing because I thought, wow. I mean, he didn't even say don't hate anybody. He said don't dislike anyone. I mean, that's such a mild statement. Don't dislike anyone, right? Anyway, it was a good lesson.
Yeah, it's a great story. Yeah, it's a great story. You can't have a better story than that. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for taking the pressure off.
Next, somebody else.
Steve, did you want to add anything to the disliking part?
I'd like, at the end of your talk, may all vaccinated, Sabe, vaccinated, Sabe, unvaccinated, Sabe, likable people, Sabe, unlikable people. Be happy, be peaceful.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Chris.
Kristen.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for your talk and for the meditation instructions, Steve. My question is, I recently had a major traumatic reaction to, I tracked it back to some medical tests that I had. But in the time of the trauma reaction, I was completely lost in it in a way that I haven't for years and years and years. And there was this tiny part that was aware. It was so tiny, but there's no way that I could interrupt the reactivity. So I'm wondering, and I feel like, after all these years, I should know how to work with this. But if you could say a bit about how to work with that kind of reactivity, like old trauma.
You want to start, Steve?
So at the time, Kristen, was there like any awareness of a body sensation? Or it was too quick to even catch that, the reaction?
You mean was I mindful of any? I was sitting out in the rain, and so I was aware of the rain coming down on me.
Right.
Is that what
That's
you
what I
meant?
mean. Yeah, if I mean, that's a sensation, right?
Yeah.
Could that take you in your body, and even for a moment, did it? Did the awareness of rain or sensation of rain connect you with your body, even for a nano moment?
Well, there was still a connection with my body in that moment. Yeah,
Good.
I was strangely in my body.
Yes.
So I
So
think, yeah.
the trauma reaction didn't take you out of your body?
I hadn't thought about that. Apparently it didn't, to a large extent.
Or were you surprised because that particular trauma response hadn't happened for years?
Oh,
Is
very.
surprise more the emotion than the actual moment of experiencing the trauma?
No, there was a lot of emotion going on. Yeah. A lot of old. So,
Like fear, like
it was mostly anger and hurt.
yeah. And the anger and hurt you could feel, that was in your body and that was present and there was a relationship with it.
Well, I was aware that I felt angry and hurt.
Yes.
I think Steve is fishing for where the suffering is. Like, is there, like, because usually with the karmic knot, this is a karmic knot and it's probably very young and pre-verbal. And when we get that triggered, and it's like, I think Steve's fishing for the resistance.
Oh, well, I don't know where it was, but there was tremendous resistance. And this was, involved another person.
Uh-huh.
So
Involved in
I was projecting
right
onto another person.
Hmm.
Who, yeah. But yeah, I guess there was some awareness.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I think that I think what's so important with a karmic knot is that when we've practiced a long time, and then we put in more time, what's left? Honestly, what's left? So a lot of the older students that I know, they're left with these places that there's the most resistance to these places, and we think they should be gone. We think that anger, or that rage, or that hurt should be gone. We actually have lost the relationship to it. It hasn't appeared for so long. That's great, right? But then when it comes up, we have this idea that it's still coming up. It shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be reacting this strong. And I know for myself, I'll kind of go, wow, I better go home, better go home, or, head for the hills, or like, gotta make space. If I have the reaction to the reaction to the reaction, at some point I have to get that I need protection. I need protection. I need to go somewhere where I can wait for some space and try to get a relationship with it. I mean, you're talking about it like you're not in it.
I'm not in it now.
Right.
I mean, it took me 2 days to figure out all that was involved in that reaction.
That's
was,
awesome. That's awesome. It's it's
unpleasant.
spectacular. It's like an old epic. It's like an old epic movie that, like, you know, you can't turn the channel off.
Right. I definitely was not able to turn the channel off for some time.
It's humbling.
Well, I mean, there was a certain level of shock that this was happening. It was very unexpected and surprising. Well, shocking, actually.
Yeah, I
So
just
what
like,
happened after the 2 days, Kristen?
Well, I kind of sorted out all the factors that led up to that. And I'm actually pretty good. I mean, at first there was a certain level of judgment toward myself for having that happen, but that kind of went away pretty quickly.
Good.
Yeah, and
And then you sort of dismantled what the pieces of it?
I don't know if I'd say I dismantled, but I traced all the different factors that led up to that response.
I see.
And, you know, with a certain level of understanding and compassion. But I guess, you know, my question is, how do I make this not happen again?
right. That's aversion.
No kidding.
But that's what we do. That's what we do with karmic knots. We want to just not have, like, we're going to stamp it out and make sure it doesn't happen again, right? And then we lose the relationship. What I'm saying is, when it hits us that hard and we don't have enough practice with that level of rage or hurt, then it takes a while to, like, put the pieces together. It's like with early trauma, we get shattered. There's a shattering. And if it took 2 days to come back together, that's the degree to which you were shattered as a kid.
But I also, the question came up is, you know, is trauma ever over? And
that's another fear or aversion question versus, can I get better at this? Can I get better at getting a relationship with it? I'm not, you know me, I'm not, I don't sugarcoat this shit. Like, it's like hard. I'm not, that's 2 days must have been super hard. And I'm not, but I do know that I'm right about this, meaning it getting rid of this stuff is aversion. And this is the whole, like, what would I call it? It's like this whole huge spiritual delusion around emotion. And it's like terror and rage and devastating hurt are not something you sit around hoping will happen again. Of course we don't. Of course we don't want that to happen again. But it's like, then then it has great power over us. And it's like, that's what I mean by, if I need to take 2 days to, like, get the pieces Humpty Dumpty back together again, I know that that was a certain karma that I lived through, that if the shattering appears again, I know that if I have great faith, that if I give it time and space and kindness, and I know eventually the understanding will come and it'll be like, oh, that was really painful. It's like good to at some point you can look back and go, wow, that was super painful. I was triggered. It's doing that early trauma, and it's like rage and terror and devastating hurt are not easy to get a relationship with. And maybe I need a little more practice with it. But I hope not right away.
As you were speaking, I thought, I think maybe what's needed is a sense of trust.
Ah, right. Right. That's hard with this stuff. It's really good that you're asking. It's like sometimes if one isn't able to get through it, sometimes you reach out and ask for help. Like but you made it through it. But it is that sense of when you're, one more thing, which is when you're in these places, it's like you're that age, young with this stuff. And of course that little young part of us doesn't have trust. That's the crux of it. It's like we're expecting, it's expecting too much for that part of us, but there's another part that can, I mean, I'm kind of doing it kinesthetically. There's another part that you learn to have come in and that can hold it. And of course, again, the karma of this stuff is rough. When you've had a rough karma with this stuff, you sort of have to wait for that. That's what I said. You go home and like head for the hills, get under the covers, whatever you need to do, watch a movie, do whatever you need to do to like wait until the compassion and metta can connect with that little part that isn't trusting. And that's like you get that piece back. You get that shattered piece back. It's like Humpty Dumpty comes back a little bit more together. That's
And it
how
might take 2 days before you can feel it in your body again, which to me is very grounding and very connecting to the experience, to what's happening in my body today. And maybe the first day it can't be felt. And maybe the second day, little by little, we feel different parts of it in different parts of the body. But for me, that's the portal. That's the way in.
and the metta with it, right?
With the
The
compassion,
metta, yeah, the
compassionately
compassion,
feeling
yeah,
it through the body.
yeah. Body and mind coming together in trauma is sometimes it's it just takes so much waiting. I'm speaking, you know, you can hear it. It's like nobody wants this, but you'd have to be nuts to want this to appear, right? Right, Kristen?
Definitely.
Right, or Steve, any of us, you know, you don't want this to reappear, but it does. And then it's like getting strong enough to wait until you can be with it. And that, I think I have 100% faith in this process. But I don't expect that little traumatized kid in me to have faith in that process. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely.
Yeah, okay, good, good. That's asking too much. You don't ask a 1-year-old traumatized kid to be mindful. No, that's not fair. It's not fair. It's not wise. It's not loving kindness. What you do for a 1-year-old who's been traumatized is you pick them up and hold them until they're okay.
And I think that's essentially what I did.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. You're fine. You just got a little dynamite in the system.
Thank you.
Yeah. You did great, Kristen. There's a Matt. Matt's disappeared, but you're
Trying to make the computer work.
Oh,
Ah,
hi, Matt.
it is. Thank you for the meditation and the talk, Steve and Michelle.
thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
It's good to sit with you guys. Got kind of wound up with being in the sandwich generation for a while. We got some elderly and some young folks in the house. So, but yeah, that last comment sort of just raised a thought with my own practice, going through similar stuff and with anger, and it's an ongoing, or reactivity, it's an ongoing challenge. And we all come at it from different angles, different histories. So here's the scenario. I had a salary dispute. I'm a teacher, and some credits weren't recognized by the DOE, and they weren't recognized by, or the union wasn't supporting me. So ostensibly that's, the real world scenario. But I found myself, getting very angry about it, being very triggered by it. And it just tapped into, and so there was the sensations, noticing all of those unpleasant sensations connected with the anger, the tightness around the heart, the racing heart, the pit in the stomach. And I guess I don't know, for some reason, this happened in the past week or so, a couple thoughts came through my head. One of them was, I realized that it was, that there was something deeper, it goes back to the sort of the childhood stuff that you were mentioning, Michele. There's like a cognitive dissonance that goes on, the not getting what I want, or the anger, and then thinking I'm not worthy, or, something like that translates into that. And and then the other thing was just trying to be aware of, okay, is this reactive anger? Is this really lashing out anger? Am I being unskillful? Am I just throwing my weight around? Or is there some righteous indignation? Because there's some similar sort of body experiences or body feelings to both of those. And realizing that it was more righteous indignation, and realizing that, life's going to be pretty exhausting if when I'm righteously indignated, I have to go through this, the intensity of the emotional experience is just so much. So anyway, I'm not sure where it's all going to pan out, but I'm trying to keep those in mind and heart as move forward through it all.
Where is it now, Matt?
Well, it's it was less so until I got a letter in the mail today, which I haven't opened. So it triggered a lot of the, I can't wait to read the union's letter. I'm sure they have something really helpful to say, like they want to realize the error of their ways and they're coming to my defense. But no, that would be, so it's, I guess, yeah, it's just trying to laugh at myself and just, I guess, see the process through, but without just, I guess that was the main thing that really, that I keyed into. It was just feeling, feeling the weight of the process of going through it, and how reactive I would be, or how emotionally draining that whole process was to go through that anger cycle every time. And it still is, and it still will be, but just to, I don't know, just like now, lessen it with a little humor, lessen it with some perspective, from the different angles. I don't know, open to, always interested in other people's, angles and strategies too. Yeah.
Well, listening to you, the energy was around the righteous indignation. And when I feel a real strong emotion that's up and current with something happening, where I get a little space is how we say, the stronger the emotion, usually the older it is
Mm,
in our system. The much earlier did something happen, an intrusion or an absence or hurt. And so if I kind of make space for that really old hurt, that really old grief, that really old loss, abandonment, it helps me deal with and take some of the energy out of, in your case, the righteous indignation, what's current. Because the thing that's current is what we kind of feel like striking out against.
yeah.
Or we feel manipulated by, and like feeling frozen to open that letter today. Maybe you don't have to do it today. Huh?
That sounds excellent. I think I'll wait till tomorrow. Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying about the strong emotion that arises, and then just getting still and feeling compassion for ourselves, and recognizing, if we can, that very oldest pain that we might have felt, karmic pain or karmic knot, where we felt hurt in a way that we wanted to strike back, and try to be with that older pain. I go in the body and I look for a read on that. Where in the body can I notice the difference between the current, being really angry and wanting to strike out, and something much more ancient and sorrowful in a way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Remember, it's the resistance that's so painful, right?
Mm,
So that, like, that's what's happening. That's like Steve says, the stronger the emotion, the older the hurt. And it's like that deeper that is, the more we learn to resist it to survive. You have to understand that the resistance is trying to protect you. It's a part of, it's like the trust comes from accepting the resistance, the trust in yourself, that's the way you're trying to protect yourself, and that it's okay. That we get all these ideas that aversion isn't okay, or that resistance isn't okay. And it's like the resistance upon the resistance upon, it's like, this is really painful. And it's triggering painful stuff. It's hard enough to feed yourself in Honolulu, never mind a bunch of kids and the elderly. I'm sure this is no picnic. It's hard times. As the citizen Cope says, hard times aren't hard to find these days, and that it's, however that's playing out, it's like, I don't think the DOE is taking compassion courses yet, or the union, enough to get what this is like. And so accepting that this is happening is on any level is, again, if you broaden it out, accepting a lot of the pain that's happening these days is taking a tremendous amount of work for all of us. The levels, like that friend that said she's disoriented from it, that the burden of it, and the need to take enough time to have the courage to be with this level of pain that's happening is, remember, it's painful. Right?
yeah. And it's interesting. Something that also helps, I don't know if it's in that vein too or not, but realizing that, there's a personalizing to it too. And so just trying to open up to the possibility that it might not work out how I hope. And that's a reality. But there's other people that find themselves in similar situations, so I talk to other teachers and I hear that. there's a gap there. So maybe the answer is to fill that gap and to help solve that issue, you know, and to somehow, I don't know, the idea just went through my head. Maybe that's a way, you know, too, to transcend the anger, you know, as opposed to you're doing this to me, you're offending me, you're taking my money, you're, you know, me, my. There's a bigger problem. Let's fix the bigger problem, whether or not it happens to fix the issue. And something about the relationship to the anger, you know, and also that old parable, something about a samurai who was going to avenge his master's death. And the guy who had killed the master, just as the samurai drew his blade and was about to righteously seek retribution, the killer spat in the samurai's face. And so then the samurai had to stop because his action would have come from personal anger, you know, so trying to tap into that too.
Yeah.
Good story.
We're supposed to stop now, but I think if there's Jane, if you want to do a quick something or other, we'll try to do a quick something or other back. Where'd Jane go?
My question is about the sense doors. In the meditation that we did that Steve led us through, I found I've been trying to work with just one sense door, either just the eyes or just the breath or the body. And in doing it in a restful, deeper way, I went from my sight, and then all of a sudden I was listening to sounds and feeling those vibrations, and then it changed and kind of went wandering all through. And I just wondered if do I just notice that, or do I try to then just anchor again and go into the one that I started with, or?
As long as you feel a sense of presence, it doesn't matter. If wandering means you leave your body and you go off thinking about what you're doing rather than doing, just being there with the experience, if you're wandering in that way, then it's good maybe to come back to the breath of the body and re-establish that present time awareness. But if you're feeling present, and if it moves from sight to sound and it starts to go kind of in a free flow way to other sense doors, you can just do that. Just abide in that present awareness. Abide in that awareness and let it take you where it does, in a free flow awareness way.
Because I had a lot less distractions or thoughts doing that than I did the other way.
Good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Right on. Good. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Always good to see you.
Have a good week. Acceptance, resistance, acceptance, resistance. Accepting resistance.
Sabe vaccinated, Sabe unvaccinated, Sabe likable, Sabe unlikable.
Good luck. Takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Linda. Bye, Harry. Mm. Mm. Metta, metta, metta.
Thank you,
That's
Michelle
great.
and Steve.
Mm. Take care. Good to see you. Good to see you. I end it.